Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Of course, it is game day, and we have a very special guest who's probably quite busy this time of year with us right now.
Absolutely. You see him in all the Hockey Night in Canada broadcasts. Scott Morrison joining us, analyst with Hockey Night in Canada. How are you, Scott? Nice to see you.
It's good to be here. Thank you very much.
Fiona was asking, last game in Boston, you guys were broadcasting from the arena. What was the atmosphere like there for you guys?
Well, we'll be there for Game 4 as well, and Game 5 is actually Game 5. We're going to be at the Plaza at the CBC building.
But without the team there
and
just all the fans.
It was great in the building. I've never gone to one of those before. You always see them happening, and you wonder what would it be like. But it was like an actual game night in there, except the game was on the screen.
Well, I had heard they had the odds play and that sort of thing.
Odds
but they
were on
also
the
had
ice.
some pee-wee hockey, which I think is absolutely adorable. What was it like for the little guys to get out there?
Yeah, they had them on during the intermission. The odds played a couple songs, and then the kids came on, and we were getting ready for one of our hits, and all of a sudden one of the kids scored. Well, the foghorn went, the crowd went crazy.
What a moment for that kid,
The kid must have been like, yeah!
Oh yeah, just a great experience. And there was 15,000 people, so this is
amazing.
unbelievable.
How has this whole experience been for you, the Stanley Cup final this year?
Yeah. It's been neat. I mean, I was out for the Olympics, and that was a great experience. But, you know, I was saying to somebody the other day, the Olympics, from a hockey perspective, it's important for us to win because we think we should win all the time, and it's a whole different level. But you don't dream in Canada of winning an Olympic gold. You dream of winning the Stanley Cup, and so the feeling in the city is much different now. You can feel the tension after the loss.
Little anxiety.
I could feel the elation when going into that game from the 2-0 lead.
Yeah.
So it's been a good experience.
So what do you expect tonight? I was saying earlier that you know, if I were to guess, I would think this is going to be one of the best games of the Stanley Cup final tonight. I think both teams have sort of figured it out. They've got their headspace a little better now. What do you think?
Well, I think it could be the best game in the series, no question, and I think it's going to have to be Vancouver's best game.
Yeah.
This is a real defining moment for this hockey team. You knew going into Game 3, down 2-0, going home, that Boston would have their best game, and if they didn't, they're obviously toast.
And man, did they come out playing.
And they did, and you know what the hit, how that inspired them, we can talk about, but this has to be Vancouver's best game, their pushback game.
Well, let's talk about the hit and also talk about Rome's suspension. What are your thoughts, first of all, on the hit itself?
Well, I don't think any player, generally speaking, goes out to try and maim another player or put him in the situation that Nathan Horton was in, but it is a physical, violent game, and that's the culture of what these guys are feeling on the ice. They want to go out and they want to punish with their body checks, and that was a check that was late. There's no question about it, and it was a player who was in a vulnerable position, and a hit to the head and a catastrophic result. So I understand that I think the officials on the ice handled it really well with the call that they made. They allowed for supplemental discipline to come into play. It took it out of their hands in that regard. And then, you know, the suspension itself, I know it's a tough one for Vancouver fans to swallow. I was surprised to a certain degree because you don't generally see a number like that in the playoffs.
Well, you wrote on your blog that this is an indication of the change of culture in the NHL that's coming.
Absolutely.
Like, this will carry over into next season.
You know, I think you have to look from the NHL's perspective. It's the biggest stage right now. All the world is watching. If they come back, and after all the talk we've had about concussions, wanting to get this out of the game to make it as safe as possible for players, if they come back at this point and it's a one-game suspension, there's no message. And they'll be crucified for that. I think what they've shown right now is that they're taking this seriously. They've raised the bar and they sent a message.
Absolutely. And from what we've heard, and there hasn't been any new word unless you're in the know, that Horton is okay as far as we know?
He spent the night in hospital, and he had full use of his extremities when he went to the hospital, but they diagnosed it as a severe concussion. So when you get that adjective in front of it, that says a lot. But he was sent home, and he has had some exchanges with the players. He remembered it was Lucic's birthday yesterday, so that's a good sign.
So let's talk about the psychology of the players on the ice. I mean, from the Boston perspective, seeing a teammate carried out like that, what do you think that did to Boston and their game?
I think there's shock and anger at that point, and there's shock that you're really scared for your teammate and your friend. And then the anger comes into play, and I think what happened was at that moment, you know, they had a power play, they did nothing with it. They were just a flat hockey team, a disturbed hockey team at that point. But once they got to the intermission, they were 0-0 at the time. I think they found out that he at least had the use of his extremities, but he's going to hospital. Things were looking up a little bit. And I think at that point he became a rallying cry for that team. And you don't want to diminish the significance of the injury, but he did become a rallying point.
You know, isn't this interesting? Because I remember watching the game when you're young, and those hits, you know, Scott Stevens is the first guy that sort of pops in your mind. And they were always game changers for Scott's team. And now something's switched, because we've seen it twice. We've seen it with Torres. Then we saw it with Ben Eager. And now we've seen it again with Nathan Horton and Aaron Rome. It's interesting that now all of a sudden this is not an advantage for the team delivering the hit. It seems to be an advantage for the team that had their friend and their player hurt.
Yeah, I saw it a few years ago, if you remember, Toronto playing New Jersey in the playoffs, and Domi suckered Scott Niedermayer at the end of a game, and that just turned that series upside down. Yeah, it's hard to predict what the psychology is going to be in a situation like that. You know, if Vancouver happens to kill the penalty and score a goal, it's a different scenario. But all of a sudden they got a couple breaks, they get that momentum, they get some confidence, and they got angry, and ultimately
Let's talk about the Canucks and that third period. How are they going to rally themselves to come into this game tonight? Because the way they fell apart and the way that game fell apart, I've never seen such devastation. It was amazing. So how are they going to turn that around?
Well, they've been the best team in the third period all season, in the regular season and the playoffs. And I think you use that and you just look at it as one of those nights. It's like a loose thread. Everything's going wrong. It just unravels. And you were playing a team that had everything going right for it. So, you know, one thing about players is that they're pretty well trained to put things behind them, that the game is over, they go away, and you just focus on the next game. And as you guys well know, this team has been challenged psychologically over the years, including that first round with Chicago. So you use that as a building block to say, you know, we're tough. We've gotten through this. This is just a challenge. You know, you don't go into a series think you're going to sweep it. So you just put it away. And sometimes getting spanked hard like that is a better way to go down than just having a narrow loss where you can rationalize and say, hey, we weren't that bad. Well, guess what?
No,
you were bad, and there's the exclamation point.
How much do you enjoy this as a broadcaster and as a journalist? I mean, getting to the stage every year, when you get to that Stanley Cup final and you see all these storylines coming out of it, and you really understand how much goes into actually winning this cup. It must be so much fun to be immersed in that all the time.
It's a grind for everyone. And you think of how you feel at this point, the broadcaster, the writer, being here, you're exhausted.
You've lost weight.
How are these guys doing it? You know, it's just absolutely amazing. And it is the toughest trophy in sports to win. And it's just phenomenal. The way they punish themselves on the ice, the schedule they have to go through. It's unbelievable.
It's fun to watch guys do this. I'm going to put you on the spot. Ask for a prediction tonight. What do you think, Scott? What's your prediction?
Well, I picked Vancouver in 5, so I'm sticking with that.
I've been saying that all along. I'm with you.
Yeah, so I think you'll see, as we talked about earlier, a great game tonight. But I think this team, you know, you can't forget that they were first overall in the season, the best defensive team, back-to-back Art Ross champ and maybe Hart Trophy winners, best special teams. It's not about a team of destiny. This is a team that is very, very good, and they're built for a moment like tonight.
Nice. Love it.
Well said.
Thanks, Scott.
Go Canucks, go. Woo! I know, my heart's
Destroy the tape if I'm wrong.
That's right. It's not like it's going to end up on the internet or anything.
And in case you didn't know, Game 4 is tonight. The only person that doesn't know that is my mummy, who thought we won the Stanley Cup last week.
Good job. Nice work, Max. We're going to take a break.